I'm being completely honest, the first trimester sucks. So let's just talk about how we can make it less sucky, why it sucks, what you can do as far as training and nutrition, just how to really adapt during this phase, which is really hard for most people. In my opinion, the first trimester is my least favorite trimester out of all three. You just feel terrible, super fatigued, you're exhausted all the time, you're sleeping so much more. Some of you probably are puking your brains out. Others are just nauseous. You have food aversions, probably some weird cravings. Your digestion is just like on one end of the spectrum or the other. Things just are not feeling good. And if you're somebody who's in it right now, which I'm assuming if you're watching this, you probably are, it's okay. It's okay to struggle. It's okay if you just are so off kilter. It's normal. You are not alone, and pretty much everyone else is going through the same thing. If you're new here, hi, I'm Alessandra. I am a mom of almost two. I'm currently 33 weeks pregnant myself. I have a 4-year-old son, Kai, and in between these two pregnancies, we had a long season of secondary infertility and early pregnancy loss. So I have a bunch of videos on that if you are interested in hearing about that topic. But I really wanted to make this first trimester video just to help as many of you as possible work through this really hard time. I'm a certified pre and postnatal coach. I co-own an online health coaching business alongside my husband that, we really just have made it our mission to help people feel better on the inside while reaching their aesthetic goals that they have on the outside. That's called SD Evolution. And I have another business called Fit Coach Pro, which is basically the software that we use for our one-on-one coaching. We let other coaches utilize that. So just a little quick intro if you are like, who is this chick? But the first thing I wanted to sort of touch on with this video is mindset matters. I think it's very common for a lot of people to sort of just compare what they're trying to do now to what they were doing pre-pregnancy or even in like the very early stages of pregnancy, which is just unfair. Your body is going through so many changes as far as hormones and digestion and just starting to grow a human that it's sort of like in shock, which is why you feel so exhausted. But you really just have to release those expectations of what you're holding yourself to from that previous version of yourself, because that is no longer you right now. You are growing an actual human in your body, and you have to give yourself grace in this rough period. Pregnancy is an amazing thing. It's also a really hard thing, and it's also a temporary thing. I have a little quote here that I'm going to put up on the screen from our pregnancy ebook that is now only available in our SDE Method app. So I have a full pregnancy training program that brings you through weeks 5 of pregnancy through 40 plus. We also just launched our postpartum program. I'll save that for another video. But just reading this quote for you, because I think it's important. Pregnancy is both temporary and a hard thing. We as women do hard things every single day. And there's no doubt that those things get harder while you're pregnant, especially if you're already a mom. Even if this is your first pregnancy, it's a big change. It's a big transition. So, give yourself grace. Remind yourself that it's okay to sometimes take a nap instead of pushing yourself hard in the gym, or scale back your workouts. And we'll kind of dive into that in a second. At the end of the day, you don't have to be all or nothing. You're not only successful if you get a workout in and eat perfectly throughout the day. You are successful regardless of what the heck your week looked like, because you, my friend, are growing a human, and that's your main priority right now. At the very least, give yourself grace. And if you are somebody who is wanting to just do what you can to prioritize feeling as good as you can right now, understand we have to shift those expectations a little bit, but also you decide your fate. Just because a lot of people do struggle in this first trimester doesn't mean that you have to play into it, if that makes sense. And I don't know if this is going to make sense or not, but like, for instance, my first pregnancy with Kai, it was the first time I was going through being pregnant. So I kind of leaned into the fact that I was pregnant and that I was supposed to have cravings and supposed to feel like garbage, and really just, it's not that I didn't take care of myself, because I still worked out consistently in the first trimester with both pregnancies, overall I still ate fairly well, but I definitely have been eating much better and more normal this pregnancy compared to my first. And I don't think it has anything to do with anything except for just where my mindset was at. I really just leaned into being pregnant and adapted that as my identity in a way. I have no idea if this makes sense. So if you're like, this is a little too woo-woo for me, just let it go. But that's just how I feel. So we're going to talk about how my experience has been. We're going to talk about exercise, nutrition, how you can really maximize your experience. With exercise, you want to simply just ask yourself, what is doable for me today? Maybe that's just a walk outside. Maybe that is your normal workout at your normal intensity and everything feels pretty decent when you start moving. Maybe it's your workout at a much lower intensity. So maybe you drop the weight a little bit, or you scale back in some ways and you only do a few of the exercises, or 2 sets instead of 3 sets. So there are ways to scale your overall workouts to still get something in without being all or nothing about it. But only you can determine the answer to that question, and it's going to change daily, especially during this first trimester, but all throughout pregnancy too. But when you wake up or throughout your day, at different points throughout your day, ask yourself, what is doable for me as far as movement goes today? Your biofeedback, so what your body is telling you, really matters during pregnancy and not during pregnancy. But you have to consider the fact that your energy levels are very low due to hormones fluctuating. Your sleep is probably off due to just the stress, whether it's good stress or bad stress of being pregnant, or just, things interrupting your sleep, like not feeling your best. That's going to throw you off a little bit. Your recovery is likely much lower if you are not eating normally, and your fatigue is much higher just due to all of the above. So you have to factor in your biofeedback. These are things that we have our clients track regularly, whether they're pregnant or not, just because they impact how you feel, they impact your performance in the gym, and just your overall rate of progress, no matter what your goals are. So you have to account for those things and really just assess, like, okay, here's what I can do today. Commit to that and understand that it's a sliding scale, and it doesn't have to be, okay, this is what it's going to look like forever, especially if it's an off day, or if it's a really great day. Like, you have to understand it's going to fluctuate a lot. Moving on to nutrition, protein and veggies are like the most common things that people have food aversions to during pregnancy, and this is going to feel really hard if you're somebody who has paid really close attention to their nutrition. Maybe you've tracked macros, maybe you've gone through coaching with us, or whatever the situation is. It's not uncommon to not even want to look at a piece of chicken or a piece of broccoli or any vegetables. So it might take getting creative a little bit here. Also, again, understand that if things are off for a little bit, it's not the end of the world. You will survive. With my first pregnancy with Kai, I don't think I touched a single vegetable for a good 10 weeks or so. Protein was okay. I was able to get in some sources of it. I could not prepare it. Raw chicken, no thanks. But that was a little bit better for me personally. But we've had many clients struggle with both of these areas, and you really just have to get sort of creative with your meal timing. So just paying attention to when you feel best throughout your day. Maybe you feel better in the mornings, and you can prioritize getting some type of really high protein meal in first thing. Or maybe you feel terrible in the mornings and you feel better in the afternoons. Can you get something in then? Maybe it's switching up your sources of protein. So instead of, things like meats or eggs, you lean into some dairy products like full-fat Greek yogurt is great. Cottage cheese mixed in with other things can be great. Or just leaning on higher protein food sources like the protein pasta. We love the Banza pasta. Different types of beans. Dave's Killer Bread has decent protein per slice. So just getting a little bit more creative as far as where you're pulling in protein from, and understanding that as long as you're getting around 0.6 grams per pound of your body weight for that day, you're going to be fine as far as retaining muscle mass. But again, every day might look different. It's okay if you're not hitting that. You have to focus on what you can get in and just get something in. Because for me too, like the longer I went without food, the worse I felt. And then it was like super unlikely that I was going to get in anything quality as far as food went. So for me, eating like every 2 hours, every 3 hours max was key in helping me not feel nauseous. Smoothies are a great way to sneak in some different nutrients and vegetables. Overnight oats. So don't think you have to eat the same exact way as you were eating before pregnancy. Keep your options open. Pay attention to what time of day you feel best. And at the end of it all, the first trimester is only a few months. So if you really just cannot get anything quality in, don't beat yourself up about it. But, do your best to be aware of what does work and what you can factor in. All right, things that helped me feel my best. And as mentioned, this pregnancy has felt tremendously better compared to my last. And when you look at both of them, it's not that I'm doing anything drastic as far as differences, but there definitely are some differences. And I think part of it is maturity. Part of it is it just being my second pregnancy. I sort of know what to expect. I'm not as nervous. I'm not like, internally freaking out. But also, there are things that we have sort of shifted to just improve our overall quality of life even before getting pregnant that I think I've continued during this pregnancy that have helped. 3 things really helped me specifically in the first trimester. Number 1, movement. Walking was my saving grace. Lifting also helps. Like I found that when I was stagnant or sedentary for way too long, I just felt worse. And that's not to say I didn't nap or have periods where I was laying on the couch, but when I just really did not even move my body at all, it made my digestion worse. I just felt worse overall. So movement actually helped my nausea subside a little bit. Number 2, I already mentioned this, but not going too long without food. Even when I didn't necessarily want to eat, I still tried to get something in every 2 to 3 hours because I knew if it went longer than that, then I definitely would not be able to eat because I would just feel really nauseous and really sick. So staying on top of that 2 to 3 hour mark, getting something in, sort of just helped that nausea feeling subside. I never personally actually threw up from pregnancy in either of my pregnancies, but I definitely had just that yucky feeling of you feeling like you're going to be sick, but it never actually happened. And then number 3, drinking enough water was huge for me. The days where I had 2 full Stanleys, so 80 ounces or more than that, I felt my best. If I was dehydrated, it made everything feel so much worse. It obviously was terrible for my digestion, which was already struggling just due to, I think, the progesterone supplement I was taking and just it being the first trimester, like your digestion is just terrible. So constipation or the opposite problem, it was just like one or the other. But water definitely helped. And then at around I think it was closer to the end of my first trimester, we started supplementing with the Element electrolytes. And honestly, those made such a big difference in just my fatigue and energy levels and just how I felt. So if you are interested in hearing more about those, let me know, comment below and I can share more. But those were huge. I think just with my nutrition being a little bit off and drinking a good amount of water every day, you want your electrolytes to also, be in a good spot. That's 50% of the equation when it comes to you being hydrated. Lastly, I'll just touch on what my symptoms were for anybody who's curious. So for this pregnancy, super fatigued after 1 p.m. every day. Mornings, I felt pretty normal. As the day went on, that fatigue crept in. I was going to bed at 7 o'clock every day and sometimes napping every day, 1 kind nap. Slight nausea, but no vomiting, like I said before. We did unfortunately have the stomach bug in somewhere in my first trimester, but it was definitely just a 24-hour stomach bug. It was not from pregnancy. I was very sensitive to smells. I had general food aversions from like week 6 to 10. It was really just like nothing sounded super appetizing, but wasn't to the point where I couldn't eat it. Like I kind of just pushed myself to eat it anyway, knowing it was going to make me feel decently better. But I was never at the point where I was like, oh, that sounds amazing right now. So I didn't really have any cravings. Still throughout this pregnancy, have not really had any significant cravings, and I think that's just from nutrition being in such a good place with balanced meals, with adequate protein, adequate fiber, all of the habits that I've worked on leading up to getting pregnant. I was bloated AF. I'll put a picture here. Again, I mean, obviously from being pregnant and your hormones, but I think most of it was from the extra progesterone I was supplementing with. It just was so painful by the end of the day. And it was just, I remember like being up in our meditation room, like just feeling like my stomach blew up of gas. And it was just trapped. And it was the most painful thing ever. So that was probably like the most annoying and frustrating symptom and painful symptom for me. I definitely had some slight crampiness around weeks 5 through 8, which is normal. I remember having that with Kai too. It kind of just felt like mild period cramps. And then, as I mentioned, I was sleeping a lot. So like 8 to 10 hours a night and sometimes napping. But that was the extent of my symptoms. Again, very grateful that this pregnancy has felt so much easier than my pregnancy with Kai. Not that that one was bad either, but just where my mindset is at, and just overall have enjoyed this one so much more. Hopefully this video helped you guys or just shed some light on the first trimester. If you're in the thick of it now, it will be over soon, I promise. You will feel better at some point, hopefully sooner than later. I'm definitely going to be sharing more just about how I'm prepping for our VBAC, what I'm packing for the hospital, the nursery tour, all of that coming soon. So I can't wait to share it all with you. And if you enjoyed this or have any other suggestions for people, make sure to comment below as well.